what exactly is on the agenda, as I stated earlier, defense, trade, and one very crucial aspect, the energy cooperation between India and Russia will also be discussed. Remember, viewers, Russia supplies nearly 1/3 of crude oil to India. India, of course, still importing crude oil to Russia despite West mounting pressure, especially due to the Ukraine war. India imports 1.78 million barrels a day of crude oil from Russia. This is quite a hefty number. The value stands at $4.47 billion and it has jumped now 41%. This, of course, some key statistics that we're putting out for all you viewers. Crude oil imports from Russia have increased by 14%. This is the statistic as far as December 2023 is concerned. India's import of Russian crude oil have risen to 9 months high as well. Of course, India-Russia partnership as far as crude oil shipments to China, Turkey, Egypt and UAE is concerned, Russia has increased the crude oil shipments to these countries as well. But apart from this, as far as China is concerned, it is 2.1 million barrels that Russia gives to China, and to India it is 1.78 million barrels as well. A time-tested partner. We enjoy a very special strategic relationship as well. The lot of defense exports by Russia and defense imports by us. But another very crucial aspect of our imports is the crude oil barrels. To Turkey, Russia sends 0.42 million barrels. To UAE is 0.2 million barrels as well. Joining us on the broadcast is Dr. Sharad Kohli, senior economist. Thank you for speaking to us this morning. It is, of course, a power-packed visit by the Prime Minister to Russia. We're all keeping our eye out for the meeting of Prime Minister Modi with President Putin. On agenda, of course, the bilateral ties for defense. But in particular, one thing that will also crop up is the civil nuclear energy cooperation. Now, India, of course, imports a massive chunk of its crude oil from Russia. So how do you view this partnership and the transition into civil nuclear energy and Russia's help to India as far as this is concerned?
Priya, and good morning to the NewsX viewers. I think the visit comes in the backdrop of a very, very crucial time when there is Russia-Ukraine conflict going on for more than 2 years. And the conflict is at a very, very important point. Elections going on, about to happen in America. There are elections which are taking place in France, and UK has gone through elections. India, NDA 3.0, Prime Minister Modi 3.0 has just, sort of assumed power. So I think it's at a very, very crucial juncture. And you're right. I think crude oil is going to be the focal point because the total bilateral trade between India and Russia, Pia, at this point of time is about $65 billion. It is very skewed because we import about more than $60 billion and we are exporting near $4.5 billion. So it's a very skewed situation. We started rupee-ruble trade, but somehow because of these skewed numbers, rupee-ruble trade is moving at a very, very slow pace because the people had, Russian businessmen had collected a lot of rupees, which they didn't know what to do because of the Nostro account setup. Yes, civil nuclear deal is going to be in focus. We should not forget that Russia is the country in the world which has got largest number of nuclear pile-up. It's got more than 6,000 nuclear heads, very powerful as far as nuclear is concerned, although Russia per se is not a very big economy. A population of about 13 crore people, it's one of the biggest countries in the world, but as far as GDP is concerned, Russia is not amongst the top 5 or top 7 economies. It falls much below. But then as far as strategic partnerships with India is concerned, it is of very paramount, position as far as Russia is concerned. India has been Russia's very age-old partner, economically and otherwise also. Indo-Russian friendship has been there from the time of Prime Minister Nehru after India gained independence. So it's been a very long-standing relationship. And the most important thing which impresses Russia is that India has not succumbed to the NATO and Western pressure of the sanctions which were done on Russia. So I think India wants to be a neutral country. India doesn't want to succumb in Western pressure. India wants to have one-on-one relations with the countries And I think all these would be in focus. And President Putin, on many occasions, has praised Prime Minister Modi for his stand taken. And I think with India emerging as a superpower, I think will also be in the mind of President Putin that they cannot ignore India even more than before. I mean, the relationship is going to go stronger. A very important point, Pia, which I would like to highlight here is that China's India-China relation, and we also know that China is very good friends with Russia. So I think as far as India's relations with China is concerned, I'm almost sure, although this may not be out in the press, but I'm sure India is going to discuss the Chinese, mischief which keeps happening on and off, because China is very close to Russia, and there are multilateral agreements between Russia and China. So I think India can use Russia's leverage to make sure that China behaves properly and China doesn't continue to do the mischief. To a certain extent, India might succeed in negotiating with Russia. But Indo-Russian relations are only going to get stronger going forward, Priya, is all I can say after Prime Minister Modi's visit.
All right, Seth. I'd also like to take some of your points forward to Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, who's also joining us on the broadcast this morning. Thank you for taking out time speaking to us. Dr. Kohli has raised some very interesting points, especially with regards to, not so much, progress made with regards to rupee-ruble trade. He's also raised some very interesting points with regards to India, of course, standing as the mediator between the West and Russia as far as the war in Ukraine is concerned. We saw the Prime Minister standing in the center when he had visited Italy for the G7 meet during the photograph itself. Now he is visiting President Putin. It's his very first foreign, it's a second foreign visit technically, but an official visit, one-on-one discussion with a foreign leader. And of course, this of course comes in the midst ahead of the NATO meeting that is slated to take place very soon in Washington as well. So what do you expect will be taking place here, and India's trade ties? Do you see a boost that might take place in the near future as far as India's trade ties with Russia is concerned?
Well, yes, I'd like to point out that Russia will definitely appreciate the fact that India, which is now a very good friend of the United States, remains a good friend of Russia. And I would not be optimistic about any Russian role in preventing Chinese hostile activities on our border. I don't think they're going to succeed, nor will anybody else succeed. The Chinese appear to be on their own track. But so far as the West is concerned, there's a huge shift where the Ukraine war is concerned. And frankly, even people who are complete fanatics for going after Russia and basically clearing the whole of Ukraine from Russia, such as Ian Bremmer, they're all now talking in terms of accepting the status quo. I think that is something that Prime Minister Modi has said from the very beginning. The status quo is what is important. Hold and stop fighting. And I do believe that you're quite right. India can serve as a channel to Russia as and when the West finally, tires of this war and is ready to accept the status quo, because there's no better solution to save Ukrainian lives, to save Russian lives, and save so much pain in the rest of the world as accepting Prime Minister Modi's advice given nearly 2 years ago to stop the fighting and stop it now. So yes, as for defense, frankly, I have not been in favor for many years of more defense imports from Russia, for simple reason that Russia and China are today very close to each other in matters of national security and defense. And from that point of view, energy is a very, very important substitute. And I think energy can play a much bigger role than defense purchases in terms of India's purchases from Russia. The point is, what is Russia doing? Now, the Chinese have been putting pressure on Russia not to really invest their rupees in India, but to basically push India towards accepting the renminbi as the currency of exchange, which is not at all something welcome to India, and which India has very correctly said is not a gesture that India likes. So I think Russian businesses can invest in India. There are plenty of opportunities to invest in India, and Russian businesses will be more than welcome in India. It's a very friendly environment. So I do believe that provided the Russians can resist Chinese pressure, they will be able to make significant investments in India that will create jobs in India, jobs in Russia, and exports to Russia that will benefit the Russian people. So overall, I think energy is absolutely right, and the rupee-ruble trade is absolutely crucial to the future. It has to take place, and for that to happen, there has to be a much bigger flow of Russian investment to India. So far, the hidden hand of China is preventing that. They don't, just as they want America and India to be far apart, they want Russia also not to be close to the, to ensure that India and the US remain far apart. And well, one way for that, and to strengthen their own currency, one way for that is to try and get India to accept the renminbi, which is just not workable. So yes, I think the rupee-ruble trade is important. Spending by Russia of rupees in India is very important as a good friend. We have shown our friendship since 2022. And now in 2024, we can show it again by ensuring that there is an end to war, as the Prime Minister wanted. But as far as the renminbi is concerned, China, let's face it, is a hostile country. The Russians have to appreciate that, and they have got ample investment opportunities in India that will give them significant benefits, especially in the consumer goods sector, significant benefits, which now the Chinese are exporting to them. And the Chinese don't want to lose that market. The point is, Russia is a great power. It's not a prisoner of China. And I'm sure Prime Minister Modi and President Putin will ensure that matters such as this are touched upon, energy and rupee-ruble trade, while at the same time, I reiterate, defense, in my view, has to follow a downward trajectory because of the very close defense ties between Russia and China.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.